Today on Locked On Phoenix Suns, the Suns have filled 2 of their 3 two-way slots, but more importantly appear to be nearing a deal to bring in their point guard. That's right, finally, I'll tell you my thoughts on the possible acquisition. Let's go.
You are Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And we're back. This is Locked On Phoenix Suns, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Brendon Kleen, your host, a credentialed media member covering the Suns for the past 7 seasons and the host of the Just Basketball Show. Welcome in. Thank you for making Locked On Suns your first listen to kick off your Tuesday as the holiday week continues. Hopefully you have Thursday off. Either way, it is a holiday in the NBA this time of year as well. The moves are rolling in. Let's talk about it today. We are free and available everywhere, including YouTube, guys. So if you haven't already, hit follow, hit subscribe, get a new episode in your feed every single Monday through Friday. Get locked onto the Phoenix Suns right here. All you got to do is hit that button, become an everydayer right here. All right. The Suns have made one signing on Monday, July 1st. I'll save it, though, because it's just a two-way deal, and, there's more important fish to fry here. And that fish that we need to fry is Kyle Lowry, who Gerald Bourguet, in addition to some others, have reported is a target of the Suns. In addition, kind of in conjunction with that reporting, we know that 2 other targets went off the board. So let's hit that all first. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As the playoffs wind down, the sports aren't quite what we want them to be, but this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everybody every day all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to check it all out. Okay. So, Suns are pursuing Lowry, Chris Dunn, off the board to the LA Clippers. DeLon Wright off the board to the Milwaukee Bucks. Now, we know the Bucks got Wright for the minimum. So, for all intents and purposes, that's a player the Suns could have gotten, right? The Bucks are over the second apron as well, meaning that they are in the same boat as Phoenix, and they only are able to offer that. So, we know that's what they did. Dunn, not so sure, okay? The Clippers, I'm not exactly sure of their whole cap situation. I believe that they have a little bit left of the mid-level, but probably not enough to... I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the final machination might be for them. Maybe it's the biannual exception I believe they have. They could have given him that for a year. Point is, we'll hold out hope on that one, that maybe the Suns just couldn't quite bid up to get done, because I do think he was, even after everything fell out and Ryan Dunn is in here, and we know they might bring a Kogi back, I still just thought Dunn, he should have been the number one priority, because he is exactly what Okogie has not been able to do, meaning he has the point of attack defense and the energy and the athletic in kind of intensity that you want, but he can do a little more with the ball. Not available, though, going to the Clippers. The other player we knew that the Suns were intrigued by was Monte Morris, so he's still out there. And again, the Kyle Lowry thing is not official. It's not done. We have not seen the report. So, I don't like Morris because he doesn't have quite enough defense. I would have liked Wright because he has defense and shooting. I would have liked Dunn because he has defense and a little bit of a drive and kick, at least more of a playmaking game, given that he's played point guard his whole life. So, if it is Lowry, let's get there now. Lowry is the oldest option by far, 38 years old next season. He is one of the smaller options in terms of height at 6 feet tall. But we know that for most of his career, including last season, he is somebody who guards bigger than he is. And so, he's probably a little bit closer to DeLon Wright when it's all said and done. And what's kind of funny about that, right, is that the Heat bought Lowry out and end up going and getting DeLon Wright. So clearly they kind of agree. Now, they're not identical players, but there's actually a few things about Lowry that might make even more sense from a Sun standpoint than on another situation, which is that one of his signature skills has always been initiating transition opportunities and fast break opportunities for his teams. Those hit-ahead passes, those outlet passes. He's not, at age 38 going to be sprinting up the floor to go get a layup, but he has his head up. He is, he can get the rebound and make that happen. He can get that pass and look ahead and make that next pass quickly. He might go take a pull-up three, maybe less so now. But those types of things are desperately needed for this Suns team just to get that juice. So the guard market maybe didn't break down exactly like we all thought, but a lot of these players were fringe minimum players in the first place. Like I said, Wright is a minimum player, it would appear. Dunn, we're not so sure. Heck, we're not positive Monte Morris is that. There's guys like Tyus Jones, and I believe Trey Jones might be a free agent as well. I'm not having that come to my mind immediately now. But it's really about another example. Aaron Holiday was the one that I had written down here, and he, there was some. I believe John Gambadoro had it that they were interested in Holiday. Somebody did. It might have been a more national reporter. Either way, the Suns were linked to him as well. Credibly, not these insane tweets that you see when you open the For You tab on Twitter now, and it's just some account you've never heard of saying that they have sources telling them X, Y, and Z. No, they were connected to Aaron Holiday in a real way, just like the rest of these guys. But Holiday goes back to Houston on a $10-ish million deal, way more than the Suns could have offered. Throw in a center. Now, we knew that they weren't really going to be pursuing this player anymore. But I said after they signed Mason Plumlee, right, that I would wait to see how the market shaped up to see if some of the guys I liked more than Plumlee actually ended up being minimum players that the Suns were able to go get being in the second apron. Goga Bitadze. He gets $8 million annually from Orlando, and it actually looks like Mo Wagner is going to be the one on the cutting room floor over there with the Magic. So the same thing could very well happen with the guard market. It already happened with Holiday. Wright just may not have been exactly what they were looking for. He's not quite the playmaker. He's been more of a combo guard throughout his career. And so Lowry provides kind of a, if he can hold on physically and age-wise and not, look too washed anytime soon, then he does kind of feel like the best of a lot of different worlds where he has the spot-up shooting. He was 39% last year. He's maintained decent volume and decent three-point efficiency even later into his career. He has the playmaking kind of IQ to him, and he can defend multiple positions. Now, if he's out there, is he going to be the guy chasing Jamal Murray through a bunch of screens and, keeping up with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, for instance, in the West, or Kyrie Irving, or whatever guy you want to point to? Probably not. That problem has not been solved, but maybe it wasn't going to be solved by this move. And so if it is Lowry, given how the rest of everything has looked and the skills that he would bring to the table, not to mention a vet that hopefully can be a presence in this locker room and kind of behind the scenes to just galvanize these dudes, which they also need. Plumlee, another vet. I don't think it's a coincidence that they're fully going the older direction after looking a lot younger. So, I know those are very much in the middle of free agency types of thoughts that I am giving you. The point is, the market has shaped up in a way that Plumlee and that Lowry, that may be the best that the Suns can do. Those guys bring things to the table. I like Lowry more than Morris. I like Lowry more than a lot of other options. if that is somebody who will take a minimum and wants to come to Phoenix and has a role here, I think you have to be pretty pleased. Let's talk about the end of the roster. Two-way contracts have been signed by the Suns reportedly. I'll tell you who those players are and my thoughts on why this, frankly, is the best use of two-way contracts that the Suns have had since the whole thing was created 7 years ago. We'll talk about that next. First, today's show brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook. We all love sports here so much that we never want them to stop. But unfortunately, as a lot of the playoffs wind down, and heck, even the soccer tournaments are nearing their end, we get fewer games, and the sports aren't quite what we want them to be. But FanDuel lets you keep the sports going all summer whenever you want. All you have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime you're in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up every customer with a boost or a bonus every day. That's right. There's something for everybody, every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com/lockedon and start making the most out of your summer. I have my eye on Tuesday night's game, a rematch of the Commissioner's Cup in the WNBA, again in New York. The Liberty hosts the Lynx. They are 5-point favorites. The Lynx did win that game, though, so keep that in mind. The money line, you can get almost plus 200 odds on Minnesota. That's pretty nice. Over-under is 165. That feels right. It's going to be a high-scoring game. Maybe there's some props you can check out there, but that's just one example of the sports that are still going on, in addition to those boosts that FanDuel is giving you. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. All right, let's keep it rolling. Jalen Bridges, a player that I haven't talked about yet much because, hey, it was a two-way out of the second round of the draft and other stuff happened, but 6'7", older player, 5-year college player, and exactly what the Suns need if he works out. I mean, I'll just kind of get right to it, right? 37% career in college from deep on how many total three-point attempts here? 468. Also shot 80% from the free throw line. All indicators that his volume and his efficiency as a shooter should be real. Now, I haven't watched this guy. You always like to check with college players. Is their range in terms of their shooting range? Is that actually, NBA level? We'll see. But you got to feel pretty good about that. He had a 6'10 wingspan. So again, not quite the other Bridges who once upon a time passed through Phoenix as a 3-and-D wing, but still very solid. In the draft guide that Kevin O'Connor does every year, and people have pointed this out and already kind of started to laugh about it, but the comp that Kevin put in here is Royce O'Neal crossed with Mikal Bridges. Two players the Suns have acquired in the past 5 years. So, I mean, this is somebody where if it works, if the three-point shot translates from NBA range and against NBA-level contests from NBA-level athletes and all that stuff, and his defense is real, I mean, it's kind of odd that a guy... this is the part that I guess I have a question with on him, okay? Because I'm saying all these good things, right? And I even look at the minuses as far as Kevin O'Connor's draft guide is concerned, and he has, for Jalen Bridges, inconsistent three-point shooter until his senior year, and a low-usage player who hasn't proven he can be a lead creator. Okay. Totally fair, totally fine. The Sun, I mean, you're not expecting that of him, but I understand that's part of why he's maybe not a top 10 player, whereas, let's say, for instance, Mikal Bridges, somebody who has shown that he can create a shot for himself. But I just look at a write-up of somebody like this, and it just strikes me like, well, why is that guy not higher on everybody's board? And so if the weaknesses are just like, okay, was an inconsistent shooter and he's not going to create offense. Okay, well, nobody thinks he will. So I go to Sam Vecenie of The Athletic, who I've told you a lot of times is one of my favorite analysts. And so he talks about the athleticism, okay? Not a great vertical at the combine, not a lot of pop on tape, and not a very, just forceful player per se. And some of the same stuff. Not a lot of game on the offensive end besides just being a spot-up shooter. Didn't make a lot of shots at the rim in the half court and all these other types of things. He points out that, players at 23 who still have these limitations, because that's the other thing, right? Some of the guys who might have a profile like this, well, if they're doing that as a freshman, you're going to feel pretty optimistic that they have room to grow. Even McHale redshirted, and he was only a regular senior, not a super senior. So he was older, but still, was like 22. Whereas this guy, Jalen Bridges, will be, he just turned 23. He'll turn 24 next postseason in the NBA. So you're losing about a year there, year and a half, whatever it is. He points out Justin Holiday, Danny Green, kind of similar archetypes of players who were older when they really broke out and had a good NBA career. I mean, look, if the Suns got even Justin Holiday, who had a few prime seasons, never was on a great championship team or anything, but still had, some positives for good teams, the Suns would be ecstatic to get that on a two-way contract. Likewise, Collin Gillespie, the other guy here that they got. And I'll just say it again, what I said to head into this segment, which is that the combination of these two players, and remember, the new CBA allows for 3 two-way players. This combination of guys, even with just 2 of them so far, is the best use of the two-way option that the Suns have ever had. They have consistently wasted this means of developing their roster. Just flat out wasted it. And this year, it feels like they are actually taking advantage of it. You would have thought that with Matt Ishbia in and exhausting all these options and how expensive they already were, that they would have tried something. And, they, to their credit, they brought in Teo Maladone and everything else, but just it didn't end up mattering. In this case, they get an undrafted free agent right away at the end of the draft, and then Gillespie, who is 1 year out of college, played for I believe 2 years out of college, didn't actually play any minutes for the Nuggets the championship season, but technically has a ring, was a 5-year player at Villanova because of the extra year from COVID. But at the end of the day, he's only 25, just turned 25 still, and in the G League last year lit it up. Another hat tip to Sam Vecenie. I guess he's coming up double in this segment. He tweeted something that led me to go look it up, and it was about how much he killed it in the G League and the box score stats that he put up. Averaged almost a triple-double. I believe he was at like 20 points, 10 assists, and then like 8.8 rebounds or something like that. But he also had a 36-point triple-double, I believe it is, as well as 3 separate games with 15-plus assists. He just was in a league of his own, frankly. Outplaying G League competition, fully proving that he was worthy of an NBA roster spot. And, we've all been making these jokes about, the Nova Knicks and everything. He was on the 18 championship team, McHale's final season there, the second time that they won it when DiVincenzo went off and everything else. And obviously himself, Brunson, and Bridges all get drafted that year. That was Gillespie's freshman season, but he actually played. He played 14 minutes a game and appeared in 32 games. So he was a real role player for that group as a freshman. Gets drafted to a good organization in Denver, is able to produce for their G League team, and then, gets some minutes last year, played, only a handful, 225 total minutes last year, but the three-point shooting has translated at every level from college to the G League to, limited NBA run. He is going to be undersized and limited as an athlete. There's no way around that. It is what it is. But if you're talking about can he make it as an NBA backup point guard, there's a lot of evidence that players like that, especially, maybe as late bloomers, so to speak, can absolutely develop it, especially if they're starting from the standpoint of having a reliable three-point shot, especially if they can make that three-point shot off the bounce. That's going to be something I'm definitely watching. I don't know if he'll play Summer League because he's now, he's in year 3 as a pro. But if it's in Summer League, if it's in preseason, if it's in the G League, I live like 5 minutes from Mullet Arena, so I'll be catching up, hopefully, with some of those games. I want to see if the pull-up three-point shot is real. If it is, that opens up a lot. He's not maybe the best of the best in terms of racking up like tons of assists. At least in college, he wasn't that guy. Villanova tends to play an egalitarian style, so maybe that's part of it. Brunson wasn't a big assist guy. He's still not. We'll see. But in the G League, he was. And maybe that's just the system that Grand Rapids was playing that put him in position to do that. But I'll be, if he can manipulate defenses with the pull-up three-point shot, or even a pull-up jumper of any kind, honestly, like a pull-up 2 or a floater game. I know he's small, but even that. And be a real threat to kind of make a defense react to his threat as a scorer in some kind of way, and make passes out of that. I mean, you're talking about a guy who can run an offense in the second unit, and the defense might always be a question mark. We'll see how he looks when he gets more run against NBA athletes. But again, we're talking about a two-way contract, and that is about as good of a player as you can get on a two-way contract that I could think of. With that much college pedigree, a proven track record now with a good organization in the Nuggets, drafting him and trying to develop him, and a solid stint in the G League last year. To me, it's like, great. That you're maximizing the chances of getting something from that spot, and that's all you can ask for with two ways. So I love it. If the Suns even get one out of these 3 guys, assuming that they do fill the spot, maybe it's somebody from their Summer League roster that they see pop, and they give that guy their last two-way. If you get even one contributor from a two-way contract in the NBA, especially when you're capped out and you really need those cheaper contributors that you can draft and develop and, bring along, that is so big. So it might seem insignificant. What are the odds? What are the chances? The best teams do it. The Thunder have done it. The Clippers have done it. The Raptors have done it. These teams that invest in their G League teams, they get talent from it, and their players get better in that funnel. So the Suns need to become one of those teams. All right. The Heat as well. All right. Let's talk through the ripple effects, the dominoes we are still waiting for in NBA free agency before we fully rule out the Suns making any more big splashes. We'll do that next. And we're back, closing out the show. I see Suns fans getting nervous. Nasir Little is still on this roster. Yusuf Nurkic is still on this roster. And while the Suns were creative in terms of draft night with the moves that they made to basically create the pick that they went for Oso Ighodaro with at 40 in the second round by moving back in the first round and then moving up again in the second round, that's all smart, great. The 2031 pick is also still in the Suns' hands. So between Little, Nurkic, and that 2031 pick, that's 3 of the 4 assets we thought the Suns had at their disposal this offseason, aside from this year's first-round pick, which they used on Ryan Dunn, and they're all still untouched. And the roster still looks a heck of a lot like the one that just got swept outside of some rookies and a new backup center in Mason Plumlee. So I see Suns fans panicking that they're about to try to run this whole thing back right after they just underwhelmed with this group. And I get it. I don't think they should run it back. I have said all along that the goal, at minimum, should be to add one more trustworthy, reliable postseason role player, a surefire guy who can play minutes for you in a playoff rotation. They have not done that yet. I do not consider Mason Plumlee to be that. I'm not going to say rookies will be that, and those are the only moves they've made. Frankly, I would feel I would feel solid about Kyle Lowry being that, but even then, he's 38. And at some point, father time comes for everybody. So I wouldn't even feel like he's a lock to be that for sure playoff player. So I'm on board. I'm in the same boat. I get it. I understand the worry and the panic and the concern. So here's what I'm looking at when it comes to NBA trades, because this is what we've seen the past few years. We see free agency for the teams that have cap space, for the teams that, want to use their exceptions and add players and some of the minimum guys that go off the board and everything else. And then we see the trades. Now, 2 years ago, we thought it might be KD, but it ended up being Donovan Mitchell. Later in the summer, last year, obviously, it's Damian Lillard and a few others along the way through all that. Now, Holiday obviously as a spin-off of the Lillard trade, now it feels like we might be getting even more. So right now, it would appear that the Warriors are pushing pretty hard for Lauri Markkanen. It sounds like the Lakers are trying to get Jeremy Grant. And the Kings, among other teams, are looking at Markkanen also, but Brandon Ingram. I would say those are the big ones, but we still could see movement for Kyle Kuzma. It doesn't seem like Jimmy Butler's getting traded, but that's always on the table. Brook Lopez's name has been out there. Is the door closed fully on Trae Young? Probably. So that's a lot. Not to mention the Nets guys. Cam Johnson, who we all know here in the Valley, and Dorian Finney-Smith, now that they're kind of in tank mode. So that's a lot of moves. Which of them applies to the Suns? Well, I would say Brooklyn. I don't know if... Is Dorian Finney-Smith exactly what they need? Maybe not. Maybe there's not a move there. I know that if the Lowry thing happens, maybe this doesn't make sense, but like Dennis Schroeder kind of intrigues me. So I would at least keep half an eye open toward the Nets in terms of Nurkic trades. I think, good teams who are trying to acquire these players are probably not where you want to necessarily look, but could you see maybe some teams pivot and be more willing to take not a step back, but maybe a step sideways? Like I look at Miami, frankly. Would they take Nurkic? I don't know what they have. I guess, I honestly have even wondered about Sacramento, but it's Kevin Huerter as the trade. I mean, that doesn't really help the Suns. The point is, it's not going to be anybody's first priority to get Yusuf Nurkic in the door, even if they're getting a first-round pick for it. It would be kind of hilarious, by the way. I know Walker Kessler is still on Utah, and nobody's gotten him. Maybe he was never available, and that was just kind of scuttlebutt. I do think the Jazz are somewhat of an interesting place for Nurk, just because there's a few different salaries that could work for it. And it would just be, and they just signed Eubanks, so it would be hilarious to have another third straight season where a third different team has both Nurkic and Eubanks in its center rotation. From Portland 2 seasons ago, the Suns last year, and then if it were the Jazz again, that'd be hilarious. But with that many big players still available and that many teams who are kind of in win now mode having some homework to do, there's going to be a lot of collateral damage on these rosters as those moves are made, to the point where something could very easily shake loose that the Suns are able to take advantage of. And don't forget, 2031 and Nurkic is kind of the default package we've all talked about, but Little, again, is still here. The Suns have multiple second-round picks, including a couple one from Denver that they acquired on draft night that could be pretty interesting. And those could be used in a move. Little in a couple seconds is a type of trade we see all the time. Who is that player? I don't know, but I'm not going to say that the whole offseason is signed, sealed, and delivered right now. It's a little unsettling that the Suns have not been more aggressive to go and get an upgrade that is definitive. Yes, there are limitations. We all know that. I still have to admit that I expected something. I expected some kind of trade already, and we haven't seen it. But I'm not going to say it won't happen until all the rest of that stuff gets cleared away and the Suns are still left in the dust. So, incomplete. That'll wrap us up for the day. Back throughout the week, analyzing the moves that the Suns make, as well as all across the NBA offseason world. So hit follow or subscribe if you haven't already. Become an everydayer. Get locked onto the Suns during this crazy season and all year long. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.